Welcome to Lack of Focus, an X-Wing miniatures game podcast, brought to you by Dice 8 Productions. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Lack of Focus, Episode 6, It's a Wrap! Brought to you this week by Galaxy Gaming Gear, your home for acrylic tokens for the X-Wing miniatures game, and they do other games as well. I am your host, Ed Horn, and alongside me tonight, my partner in crime and gaming, one Mr. Chad Brown.
Hey, everybody.
And, of course, our producer extraordinaire, one Mr. Chris Sheriff. Chris, how's it going, my friend?
Good, thanks, Ed.
Unfortunately, Sean is again not joining us this week. I guess his work schedule has not worked out. But anyway, so in this episode, it is a wrap for First Edition. The date of recording that we're doing this, Nova Open, is already started, and that is the last major tournament for First Edition. Chad, you're going to be there.
I'm leaving tomorrow morning.
First thing tomorrow morning, well, mid-ish tomorrow. First thing tomorrow morning for you. You're on your way down.
Just sleep in, but I play Saturday, so.
Oh, good luck to you down there. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But anyway, of course, this is going to represent the end of First Edition X-Wing. And tonight we're going to kind of look back on the game and our experiences with the gaming and some of our favorite highlights from our careers in First Edition. So FFG released a whole bunch of news articles, which we'll kind of glance over real quick as well. But that is going to be the main topic for tonight. So strap in for some fun memories of the past coming up right after this.
All wings report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by. Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
All right, welcome back. And in the flight deck, we're going to cover over the things we've been doing recently in gaming. Chad, I think you've got the bigger news, so I think I'm going to let you be the lead for this one because I don't know how much you've been doing recently, but I know you've got something big coming up.
Yes. And I believe you have nothing?
Nothing. Got a whole bunch of nothing. I'm even going to miss the release party for second edition because I scheduled something through work before they announced the date that it's going to come out. So
I got one word for you.
I know.
Quit.
I'm not with the job. No, I happen to like money. Thank you. I've got 4 kids to feed and put through college. So no.
Teach them bank robbery.
That might be an option. Jake might take me up on that.
There you go.
Anyway, so what have you got going on, my friend?
Well, I've been practicing some more for Nova Open, which, as we said, I'm heading down to tomorrow and then flying Saturday. This is going to be my 4th.
That's what I thought. I thought it was 4. There was a year that you missed in between where you didn't make it to 1.
I didn't make it last year.
Right.
And the first year I went, I didn't get Supernova, but I'm getting my 3rd Supernova tag this year. So
very nice. Very nice.
You overtake me again. We were tied
for those who don't know, could you explain what that is? Because it is a very limited event. You have to pay a little bit extra for the tickets, but it's totally worth it.
The Supernova, oh yeah, it's the first year you go, you get a backpack, which I actually am in the process of still packing, which I haven't put anything in it yet. But there's my backpack there. It's got the nice little Nova patch on it. It's a KR backpack.
KR multi-case?
Yep. Then the next year I ended up getting the box. This year I'm going to get a slightly bigger box because it's my 3rd year. And then I think after that, there might be one other box that's available. And then basically you get to pick from those different ones each year after that.
And by boxes, let's kind of define what that is. That's those KR, that's just cardboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big
KR case ones with foam in them.
Well, these are these are the actual carrying cases, the fabric cases.
Oh, very nice.
Like that backpack is designed to carry either like 2 of the smaller boxes or one of the larger cardboard boxes.
Oh, very nice.
And in each pouch, and it's got 2 pouches for that.
Oh, that's super cool.
So, like, I could put a ton of X-Wing or any other like miniatures game that I got KR foam for into that backpack, and it's the backpack or the box. Now, like I said, there's like I think 3 different size boxes you get, but what they do for you is they get a hold of all kinds of like gaming swag. So there could be like, I think I got Infinity buildings, cardboard buildings the one year with 40K stuff and tokens.
Stuff. They gave out like a whole,
Everyone who's attending the show throws something in for a Supernova packs generally, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's pretty much like any game that's going on. Just about all of them have thrown in some little swag for you, and some of the stuff is actually like a $30-$40 box, and you get like 2 or 3 of those. Sometimes they'll give you like a book. There's always some snacks in there just so you can keep hydrated and keep some food in you.
Don't forget the deodorant, the complimentary deodorant. I always think that's funny.
Yes, because
we all know gamers
do tend to smell when they get in large groups like that. So it's like, please put your deodorant on. It's appreciated by everybody if you do so. But
3, 2, 1. There's a rule: at least a minimum of 3 hours of sleep, 2 meals, and at least 1 shower. Please remember these rules. Everybody will be happy.
So you get all that interesting swag there, and it's more than what you would get for just like the normal Nova. Chris just reminded me, in the Supernova, you get a beer mug.
Look at that.
Hey, there it is there. It's his actual Nova mug. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to going out for that. I'm playing in the X-Wing Nationals on Saturday. Probably going to be relaxing on Sunday. I'm looking at this realistically.
As long as you earn your sweet 1.0 Kylo card, you'll be fine.
That's
exactly.
Right. Last right there.
Yeah, but I've been preparing for that. Been running that Defender, Striker, Reaper list that I've been talking about the past couple shows. It's been doing fairly decent for me. So I've still been playing that. I played against a couple people here. I played against Linda, who's pretty much run Chewbacca, Wedge, and a Z for forever practically. Took her out with that. She does not like Rexler one bit.
I think she's been running it for like 3 Novas straight.
Something like that, yeah.
Same list.
and then I flowed against Evil Genius, and I actually won against him because he was building a list for Mr. Nice Guys and then ended up not being able to go.
Aww.
And Mr. Nice Guys was going to be like the last 1.0 event he was going to be able to attend. So he got a little nostalgic and he wanted to finish off 1.0 the way he started 1.0. He made an updated 3 Amigos list.
Did he? Seriously? So
Yes.
For the record, make sure that we're talking Biggs, Wedge, and Luke.
Yes.
Talking Death Star Trench kind of. That was what he went with.
Yeah. I looked at that and I was just like, that's looking a little bit scary because of some of the upgrades that have come out since he's last flown that list.
Yeah.
Make that list a little bit more horrible. Of course, Big is nerf. That kind of worked out in my favor because the time he decided to use Biggs, he put down the template and realized that Biggs was just a hair and a half outside of the range.
Huh.
So I lucked out on that one. But he definitely agreed. My list is pretty vicious if you don't quite understand how to approach it at first. But
I'm curious to what the competition's going to be like down there. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong. I get that there's an invite to the Coruscant thing coming up, which would be the first official 2nd edition kind of tournament, so to speak. But most of those guys know, 1st edition's done. So I'm kind of curious. Like, I'm kind of jealous because I kind of get the feeling like if you lose your first game, like everyone else is just going to be super casual at that point. They're not really playing for anything. They're not going to make it to the finals. They're not making it to Coruscant events. So it could be. I mean, I'm just concerned. How X-Wing tournaments get, especially when you start getting into those upper echelon undefeated tables. They get a little bit dicey sometimes. Right.
And this event is quote unquote like in certain people's backyards, like the Howards or,
Yes.
I don't know if Paul is playing or not.
Paul's judging.
Oh, you judging? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. But, certain better known X-Wing people, this is, like I said, kind of their backyard. So I think they're going to try and make it out for this last one.
What do you mean better known, Chad? There's no such thing as better known than you.
Yeah, I mean, how many Howards can go into a room and just start talking and have people across the room be like, I know that voice?
Yeah, exactly.
They put on a fake beard to try and hide. There you go, see?
This is a beard.
All right, so that's what you've got going on.
Yeah, been warming up, like I said. Been playing a couple people back here in Latrobe and just getting ready.
New store moving yet?
No, it actually moves over the weekend while I'm gone.
Oh, okay. So, all right, that's cool. Hopefully the new opening goes well.
I was kind of sad because I was going to be like, yeah, put all that stock in my van. I'll drive it over for you. And then I somehow went home.
Oops. You have to wait till second edition comes out for that.
Yeah, well.
All right, so Chris, I'll go ahead and toss it over to you. I think we kind of pre-gamed on this one. You don't have much to talk about as far as gaming is concerned, do you?
No, I got a lot of painting commissions done, so I've been falling behind on those. So I painted a Blood Bowl team, 2 D&D heroes, and I've got finished my Test of Honor Samurai people, and I've got some Imperial Assault heroes to paint. So I've been hammering away at those, trying to get them done, falling behind a little bit. So yeah. No X-Wing, but other stuff. The X-Wing stuff I have been doing, I've been talking to Chris Allen from the Carolina Crates about the draft format he ran. So he gave me the link to all of his Google documents and stuff. I've been working on trying to reformat that and improve it a little bit. So standing on the shoulders of giants a little bit, they did quite a lot of the groundwork, but I went through it. I've restructured the way the pilots work so you can actually get an even draft and all the packs work out better. So I'm just in the middle of assigning the upgrade token, the upgrade cards that are going to go in each pack now. You need a core set and 1 of each conversion kit and 7 first edition TIE Fighter dials. And then you can do an 8-person draft for second edition.
Can you tell me, I didn't see how the event itself actually works out. So how does the drafting work?
So you break it all down into sealed packs. You get 3 packs. Each pack has got, I think I went with 15. I went with 16 cards, so it goes around twice.
These are pilot cards, so that we're
pilots and upgrades, because they're all the same size now.
Oh, that's true.
So each pack will have 5 pilots in it, and then 11 upgrades. So it'll go around the table twice, then you open your other pack, goes around the other way twice, open your last pack, same way again. And then you've got to make, I think Chris said you've got to make 2 squads from different factions with what you draft. And that works out for 8 people.
So you don't even know what faction you're really playing until you open the pack. Because you could crack it back and go, ooh, Darth Vader. And then the next pack could have Luke Skywalker in. And you're like, and you have to kind of piecemeal everything together.
But once you, when you start making a choice to draft upgrades over pilots is when it gets a little bit tricky.
Well, and I'm sure, I don't know how you set up the packs, but I'm sure you set something up where, the named pilots are, in the rare and uncommon slot, and you're going to find more, generic named pilots.
Some packs are difficult to choose which one to keep.
Oh, nice.
Because I did it pretty randomly, where I was allocating numbers before I was looking at pilots type thing. So I can't remember the exact breakdown, but I think Fell and I forgot his name, Fenro, might both be in the same pack. So if you want to fly a PS9A, she can, but which one do you go for?
Which one do you go with? That's dirty. That sounds like a fun format. I'm sure. Why the 7 first edition X-Wing dials?
To make it so that you can have 5 pilots in each pack. Because of the number of dials you get, you can do 113 ships with just the second edition content. If you have enough TIE Fighter cardboard to do an extra 7 TIE Fighters, and the TIE Fighter dial hasn't changed.
Fair argument. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. That's cool. All right, so moving on to me, I have done Jack as far as second edition is concerned, which means at some point in time we're going to have a Patreon-only video of Chad punching me. I had intentions and plans of playing games. We were supposed to get together this past Saturday. Then my wife decided that we were going... Where did we go? I know we went to the Westmoreland Fair. We went and did rock climbing, and the kids had their karate testing all on the same day. So that kind of burned up my entire gaming time that I wanted to get done. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pay the piper at some point in time as far as that's concerned. Other than that, gaming-wise, this is a complete side project, and it wouldn't be lack of focus if we didn't lose focus for a moment. I was able to get into the MTG Arena, Magic the Gathering Arena beta test for that game. And Gabe and I have been playing it pretty extensively for the last 2 weeks. It's oodles of fun. And over this past weekend, as a rite of ritual, we had 3 generations of my family, my father, myself, and my son, getting together to build his gaming PC. So we are recording this on, Chris is recording this, break the fourth wall here for a second, but we have a brand new gaming computer here in the house so that Gabe can play some of his cool games, but this also affords us the opportunity for streaming and YouTube living some MTG Arena. So I know that's not obviously focusing here, but we are kind of in a geeky genre. So if you play both games, for example, and you're interested to see what the MTG Arena beta looks like and watch me play Magic badly, that will be coming soon once we get this computer up to snuff and I start doing some test records and things like that. It'll be fun. It's super difficult to keep a straight face when you're doing stuff like that, by the way. So gaming wise, that's all we've been really doing. The gaming PC has been fun. Didn't really get a chance to play X-Wing, but we did get a lot of MTG Arena in. In short, I intend to do a review video as my first video for it, and it's super cool. So that is going to be it for the flight deck. We're going to move on to the news briefly right after this.
Almost there.
All right, we're back, and in the news, FFG kind of shotgun blast us with a whole bunch of articles, mostly kicking off second edition. We kind of anticipated something like this at some point in time, but we got an opportunity to look at some of the cool new alt art stuff that's coming out for the release kits and things like that. So there's a couple articles. They had a couple of guest writers. Our aforementioned Paul Heater wrote a guest article. Zach Bunn from the Team Covenant site also wrote one. Just a kind of a refresher course. I really enjoyed his. It was kind of a nice refresher course on game mechanics and how to play X-Wing. It taught you what the benefits of focus fire. Yeah, the 4 pillars, exactly. Focus fire, arc dodging, things like that nature. It was a really good, well done article.
I'm disappointed they stole my name. My Dice 8 videos were Flight Academy videos, and now they've got a Flight Academy series of articles.
Copyright infringement.
I think I'll let them off, seeing as I was using their IP to do my articles. So
yes, so I think we fall into that category. The other article I did was Join Blue Squadron, which is going to be talking about the first event. What I believe this is a season 3 organized play kit is what we're looking at here. I am really enjoying. Again, we're going to slip into the Magic Arena. One of the cool things about Magic with the lands that they did is they made them all full art.
Nothing cool about Magic.
No.
But they're doing the same thing with some of these the alt art cards. So they're different in the fact that the art goes all the way to the edge of the card. We saw a couple of these preview ones, but I kind of thought that those were just special edition. But no, that really seems to be the direction they're going with the alt art cards. And I have to admit, while I do consider it's like a basic generic upgrade, the full art shield upgrade is super awesome. There's no text on it. There's just a little thing on there and Chewbacca working on the Falcon. Super cool. You also get the Blue Squadron pilot on that as well. And these metal, what are we calling these? Are these
the arcade tokens?
Those are the arcade tokens, so the metal tokens. I don't know how I feel about those yet. I guess I'm going to have to pick one up, feel it, touch it, and see it on the table.
When you win some and you can clink them around, you'll like them.
Yeah, like poker chips. Yeah, maybe you might be right. But these are super sharp. A little disappointed that they went with the same art, that is the stock art, just fully edging it. But when you sit down and look at...
I don't mind that on the season kits, because it makes your bigger events more special if they do alternate art rather than extended art.
Yeah, and I keep thinking back again, since we're going to be reflecting on first edition, the extended art Guri is one of the more sought after cards, or was until they've all become worthless, because it was extended art. I don't know why that was a big deal.
I was chatting with Paul LaRue about this. We were having a good conversation and talking about artwork and all. Obviously, he does his own range of alternate art cards, and we were saying that I don't know why people are burning their stuff, because it's still nice artwork. I've got all of my stuff in a binder, all sleeved and like in the pouches, and I'm just going to keep it for the artwork. It's still Star Wars art. It's still inspirational for like, I think, getting into the universe.
Absolutely. This does teach me a little lesson, though. So when second edition was first announced, Chad and I kind of talked about a bit where we would burn all of our first edition stuff in my backyard fire pit, and we never got around to filming it, never got around to doing it, and then somebody already did it. So now at this juncture, we can't do it because it looks like we're copying off of someone else.
But did they do what we were going to do?
No, we had
mess it up and be running around on fire, like in The Sims.
No, we had a whole bit thought of. Like, we really kind of planned this out, and it was the second edition conversion kit. So what you did is the first you need a Chad, someone that's good with fire, and then we were going to literally just throw all our cards in a cardboard box in the back. We were going to set it on fire. There was going to be a scene with like Chad just like spraying lighter fluid on it and laughing maniacally. And then when the flames died down, you were going to open it up and you were going to find the second edition box. And look, it's converted to the second edition box. I thought it was hysterical. We should have done it when we thought of it. And I think this just teaches me a lesson. If I think of something cool for the show, we do it that week. Anyway, Scramble for the Fight, some more extended art. And these are alt arts. These are not the art cards that are actually coming on the standard conversion kit cards, or the ones that you buy from the sets. Although I think the Academy Pilot's the old art from first edition, but I'm fine with it. Oh, no, maybe not. No, I think this is different now that I'm looking at it. But these are super sharp, and of course, because they're TIE fighters in it, now I have to have them. There is an extended art, Luke Skywalker, an extended art Obsidian Squadron, so now I need all the TIE fighters. So I will hopefully be able to attend this event. I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch the Saturday opening one, but maybe somebody will be running Sunday that I can catch one. I'd like to be able to get on that. Pushing the Envelope, I think, was that other article that they talked about. They're going through each individual faction, and they're focusing on some ships, and here's what some lists looks like in second edition. This one featured one of my favorite ships from first edition, which was the TIE Phantom. Actually, two of my ships now I'm looking at, the TIE Phantom and the TIE Defender. And then, of course, the new Reaper as well. Cool list, cool articles, just kind of getting everyone ramped up. Anything else that I missed on this one? I think they still have the stock standard TIE Swarm Fighter layout in Paul's article for the Flight Academy. I really wish that they would have reprinted his Turn Zero stuff, like an updated version of Turn Zero. I don't know if you have the opportunity to go back and look through the news and read his old Turn Zero article. It's fantastic. It gave you some really good ideas of the game before the game, setting up rocks, how to position, how to plan your flight path through. I always thought that was a super helpful article. And maybe they will redo it, because you got to figure there's a whole bunch of people that are going to be coming into the game now with second edition out that didn't play in first edition, don't know some of those fantastic articles that were written. That's about it. I don't think anything aside from the old art and stuff, nothing new was revealed. I mean, we pretty much know everything that's coming in second edition. Now we're just all kind of geared up and pumped up for second edition. Did I miss anything on that?
We're looking at List Jugglers probably going away.
Oh, that's right. We should mention that.
So List Juggler was a site that people used to basically review a meta. It dragged in all the tournament data, all of the squads, everything like that. It was a really useful tool if you wanted to analyse that side of the game. But with the update and FFG having their official app to use, we're not really sure. Well, the guy who does it has been told that they're not going to put in any way for him to just export the lists. So rather than having manual entry as the only way to do it, he's just going to let it die. So,
well, and there's that other site too, MetaWing, that does it in a sort of like, these are the lists are kind of in the meta. Again, I hate going back to all of these Magic ones, but there's a site called MTG Goldfish that does the exact same thing. It shows you the current list in the meta, what the average builds are.
Ed.
Yes.
The 90s called. They want their card game back.
Still alive and well and kicking, 2018.
Keyforged is where it's at.
Keyforged. I've heard a lot of good stuff. I've seen a couple of things online. Some couple of playthroughs, folks that got decks and actually trying. It looks interesting. I'm still really kind of confused on how that's going to work with, if they decide that one particular deck is stronger than another, are they going to rotate the whole damn deck out? I don't know. But it looks interesting. It does seem like it has a really rich backstory, which is usually what attracts me to most games, is the backstory. So we'll take it. We'll see. That's it. Obviously, Nova Opens is coming up this weekend. Chad, you're going to be there. I assume you're going to be catching some interviews from folks there for as many folks as you can. You've got to get Mashari. You know you do.
Yeah, if Mashari's down there, I definitely want to get him, see if there's a couple other people who I've talked to over the years. I was thinking about doing a video format, sending the videos to Chris, and maybe we can go ahead and stick those in a in focus, or it just filler for another lack of focus show in the future. So
yeah, we'll get them all used. I promise to use all of the content you create.
Awesome.
Excellent.
He promised to use all the content I created. Just remember that.
I heard that.
It's okay.
I heard that too.
So if I create anti-egg content, he promised to use it.
I'll just have plausible deniability. Oh, that didn't come through. Corrupted on render. Oh.
I'll put the link in the description or down in the comments for any YouTube videos and
Absolutely. All right, so that's going to do it for the news. We are going to move on to the main topic of the show, which is our reflections back on the first edition of the game of X-Wing, and that'll be coming up right after this.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
All right, we're back, and in the final segment for the evening, we're going to be covering That's a Wrap, our thoughts and experiences in first edition X-Wing, and we're going to kind of cover some of the high points, low points, some of the laughs we've had, tears we've shed for this fantastic game. Chad, I know we've set down in categories, so let's start off with the first category on your list there, Chris. What is the first category on this one that we'd like to talk about?
So I probably want to start off with the game in general and the ships and stuff like that.
Excellent. So, Chad, I'm going to let you lead off on that one. Your thoughts on first edition as a game, ships, anything that jumps out to you?
Well, I mean, I liked first edition. Obviously, ship-wise, always had a place for dear old Kath.
Yep.
Even though she's leaving me, I
now.
still, you know,
she's nothing but scum.
Yeah. You know, I'd really, really like to have a next where I don't say that about them after so long, but no, good
There's
old
nothing
Kat.
stopping you going with her.
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah, it's the Empire.
Yeah, the Emperor won't hunt you down and kill you, I swear.
Yeah, you and what army? Oh, that army.
Oh, that army. Oh, yes. Oops, I forgot.
Yeah, you know, along with some of my other favorites from first edition, like the Space Cow and Whisper.
Thank you. I was actually really surprised that was not the first thing that came out of your mouth.
I had to get my dig in on Kath running away, so.
Of course. But the Space Cow, that was one of those things, of course, you know, that was I purchased 2 Space Cows for the sole purposes of advanced sensors. Had no desire to fly the ship, thought it was big, thought it was clunky, and Chad took a ship and said, give it to me and hold my beer. I'll show you how to fly this thing. And to this day, I still think he's a better Space Cow pilot than I have ever seen. He can squeeze that thing in between 2 rocks in a ship. Nope, that'll fit. Blue, drop it in. Easily one of my favorites. I was hoping you were going to mention the Space Cow because we had a lot of that ship.
I got to. I mean, first two so-called loves of the game were Kath and the Space Cow. And then, you know, eventually I grew and started flying Whisper and, you know, I like using Palp here and there. And I mean,
kind of went along with the Space Cow anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, you've been flying that Space Cow like pretty non-stop hardcore. Although I think you put him in the Reaper in this new list, correct?
Yeah, he's in the Reaper now, just because it's the whole thing.
Because that thing can dance.
Yeah, it can actually fly.
Yeah, like I stopped using the Space Cow when the Upsilon came along, and the Upsilon's not going to be available to the Empire coming up here real soon. So the
Space Cow's got
Reaper
an ass gun now. Just throw that out there. You can shoot out the rear.
I know, so I might have to look into that again.
The Reaper's really good, though.
The Reaper is still good, but yeah. But the Cow, they're fixing that whole, oh, you're behind me? Okay, well, I'm screwed thing, you know?
Just stop. Hit the brakes. They'll fly right by.
Right by here.
Not in my experiences. Usually they slam into the back of me and then they slow roll it because I'm a large base and usually it's a small base. And they'll slow roll it so they can stay behind me.
You just need Hera Syndulla on it, you'll be fine.
Oh,
Rebel Captive Hera, and you're fine. Is that how it works? Have I been playing the game wrong?
Yeah, you might be.
Anti-pursuit laser.
Anti-pursuit laser is the way to go. Just, you want to slam into me? Fine, I will take you down. Anything else you want to cover as far as ships, mechanics, anything like that, or do you?
Let's see. Everybody else getting a TIE fighter kind of sucked.
Everybody's got one.
Everybody's getting TIE fighters.
That's
the lack of
edition.
Imperial droids, yeah. See, now I think Imperial droids could have worked if you'd just kept them to large base ships. You know, a ship where it would have made sense. And then the icon could have been the little mouse droid, you know. That would have made sense. Obviously, like, TIE fighters aren't going to get a droid, and, you know, some of those other ones wouldn't. But the larger base ships, I thought should have.
And that kind of goes into that segment at the end, that stuff that you would have liked to have seen. So I want to table that for a second, because I can go on for about 20 minutes on that particular aspect alone. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I will absolutely cover that. Chris, I'll pass the ball over to you. Some of your favorite ships, mechanics, stuff like that.
The TIE fighter, just running the 8 TIE Swarm. That was my early days of competitive X-Wing, running 8 TIE fighters, refusing to cave and take Hell Runner because I liked the symmetry of 4 and 4.
Obsidians and Academies.
Yeah,
it's a good list.
I really enjoyed flying that. It was so much fun. I used to fly them as if it was flying just 2 large base ships. Just pinwheel them around, yeah. Yep. I really liked the E-Wing before it was on vogue. I ran Chewie Corran for a while. And I probably should have stuck with that more. Kano was good fun. Just say no. Can I focus? No. Can I? No. Well, I've already focused. Can I? No.
No. You can't spend it. No.
Yeah. I really liked the ace packs and the repaints and stuff, and then how exciting it was when Epic came out and the big ships and just flying through stuff and crushing things, and there's a rock in the way. Oh, not anymore. Oh,
just run right over.
There's like 12 TIE fighters in the way. Oh, not anymore.
I still feel like Rebels got gypped with the GR75 because it does. I mean, it's a support ship, and I get that, but it was the first one released. It came with that and the alt paint job of the X-Wing.
Wedge's X-Wing.
With Wedge, exactly, but you put it on the table and it didn't shoot. And I recognize that the Corvette came out like 3 weeks later, but you had 3 weeks of a game where you have the ship, but it doesn't shoot. It's just a big support vehicle.
It jammed and corresponds and runs things over.
We basically called it the bowling ball because it's really what you did with it. You picked it up and you just flew it into stuff and just ran it the hell over.
That's what Josh did.
That's exactly.
Did you ever play the actual campaign that comes with it?
No.
There you go. You're missing out.
No, I can tell you that I never played a single special scenario from any expansion ever printed in first edition. So like you got all of those tokens and all of those other things that came in. Well, here's a cool special scenario that came with it. No. The only one we ever ran were the ones that came with the core set because we only had 3 ships to play and you had to find a way to extend the game when you were playing out on the kitchen table.
They're so good. The only one I haven't ran out of a GR75 is the final one where you needed 3 of them. But I might still play that anyway now because enough people have 3. Like you can get hold of them easily enough. But one of the things,
and we still don't know what they're doing with Epic, so you can get them dirt cheap.
One of the things I wanted to do once 2.0 is out properly is work on conversion rules for how hard is it to just keep playing Epic by doubling the point. Because if you're playing Epic anyway, you're probably not doing it competitively. So who cares?
No. That's on my list of stuff I wish would have come to X-Wing. That's on my list. I should start writing that stuff down, actually. Anything else you want to touch on? At least on this topic, anyway.
I suppose that's it for like games and shit. I thought about doing our journey into competitive X-Wing.
We can.
Moving into X-Wing to competitive, the evolution of the game for you. And
Oh, no, absolutely. I'd still like to talk over about some of my favorite ships and some of my.
No one cares about that for you.
No one cares.
Did you fly ships?
I did.
Really? You didn't just buy a bunch of them and sit them in your basement? And,
No. They're here. They get played. There are some ships I've never flown. I will freely admit that.
If you looked at a case, I guarantee you haven't opened in months.
That's not true. I moved stuff around the other day.
It dusted.
So,
Moved stuff around. Didn't play.
I did.
Moved stuff around.
I did. Okay, so for me, obviously, the very first list I ever attached myself to TIE Swarm. Now, that was actually by necessity because finding the Wave 1, Wave 2 expansions when we've started was impossible. You could find core sets falling off of shelves in game stores, but you couldn't find any of the expansions. The FFG kind of really underestimated how well the game was going to perform, and stuff was flying off the shelves. I mean, you could pay triple the price on eBay if you really wanted to. Like, I remember seeing B-Wings, or not B-Wings, what am I thinking of? Seconded. What was the ship that came? A-Wings going for like $40 on eBay because nobody had them. So the first list, I just went out and bought a bunch of core sets, and I did spend a little extra money to get Howl Runner out of the TIE Fighter pack. And I remember that was the very first list, and I know I've talked about it ad nauseum here. The very first list I attached myself to was 7 TIE Fighters, which was, Howl Runner, Dark Curse, some Obsidian Squadrons, and a couple of academies. Fantastic list. It was a really interesting way because that's how I learned how to play X-Wing. And back in those days, before we had token stacking, before we had all of this other stuff, TIE Fighters were really, really good. And having 7, 8 of them on a board meant, okay, some ships shot you once, and then you shot them 14 times before they got to shoot back. So you would erase ships off the board. It was really super competitive. I do play, and I did play back in those days, and a lot. But these were also the days whenever Chad and I were just kind of trying to get the game started at the game store. Nobody knew about it. Nobody really touched it. So those early days of, I still have the same case. We'd bring this, and that was one of the other reasons I was buying is like 3, 4, 5 copies of the same ship. Was people would come up, oh, this looks good. Well, here, let's teach you how to play. Pick a ship that you like from Star Wars, and we played out of my box. All the upgrades, all the cards, everything came out of my box for a really, really long time in those early days. But it was just Chad, myself, and our 2 sons, and that's what we did. And it took a while to catch on, but once it did, it really kind of got off and running. It was a lot of fun. Favorite ship obviously was Howl Runner. Howl Runner in my mind can fit into any list, but she obviously fits better into a TIE Swarm. If I had to pick a second place, it would have to be Echo. Only because I love the way that ship moved. And we're talking the old school cloaking rules, not the FAQ'd and re-FAQ'd rules that ended up being what they were. I do have a clue. Stop giving. I'm going to start ignoring you.
You know this also goes out in an audio format, Chad, so you're just doing like podcast garbage for half of our listeners.
Exactly. Keep that in mind, huh?
I'm not the one responding to it.
This is true. It is my fault. But yeah, so
don't feed the trolls.
Talking way back the way that the old decloak rules were, like I remember seeing someone going into Vassal one time saying, here's the number of combinations of where Echo could end up in any turn. And it was like 60 different possibilities.
The Echo location too.
Right, exactly. Like you never knew where that ship was going to go. Now she never really, she tried, and there are some lists that actually made it to work, but for competitively, like you never really saw a ton of Echo, and it was never a question of flying that ship for competitive factors in any way, shape, or form.
Unless you're Aaron Bonner.
Right, unless you're Aaron Bonner, you can take 2 TIE Fighters and win a tournament with it, or 2 TIE Phantoms and win a tournament, which he did, the 88 list. But it was just so much fun, just being able to do all that positioning. Just learning the game, how many times you hit a rock, learning to get your wings under you, how to fly, how to be able to eyeball locations and where ships are going to land, and if they're in arc or if they're in arc. Some stuff I still haven't mastered to this day, but just learning some of that was just oodles and oodles of fun. I am going to. I'm looking forward to second edition. I'm not trying to be detrimental in any way, shape, or form, but I definitely had a lot of nostalgic events, a lot of hours in the game store. Our very first game of X-Wing, Chad, was on my kitchen table in on my sun porch, and we played with 2 TIE fighters and 1 X-Wing, and that was the game. And it was it took a while, but once it blew up, it really did, and it became a big part of my life. I think this is now's probably the good point in time to put this part. I was going to kind of save it for later, but this has to be the other part. My X-Wing career through the course of the time that we played really went downhill quick. Really, in my mind, went hand in hand with doing our old show, Nova Squadron Radio. We'll get into competitive and getting into competitive here in a moment, but and this is sort of outside of that. The very first tournament that we ever attended, the Nova guys came up to run the event. So that's where we met Roy. That's where Paul Heaver's got his backpack on that says World Champ on the back, and I'm geeking out like, oh my God, it's Paul Heaver.
He seriously was.
I seriously was. It's no joke. But that is where that tournament was the genus for Nova Squadron Radio. I walked in there to play a tournament. I walked out making new friends and starting on this incredible path of X-Wing and podcasting at the same time. So from that point forward, from that event forward, everything that moves forward in my career X-Wing wise is tied into the show. And it's tied into meeting guys like Chris and meeting guys like Sean and making lifelong friends, and Bob and all the other guys that were regulars on the show. I don't want to detriment it. Richard, all the guys that were doing on the old show. We met them through. Right, exactly. Well, yeah, I meant both. The Chris with a K. But meeting those guys, starting the show, being able to do what we did for 70 some episodes that we did, it was more than the game to me. It was the friendships that were created from there and everything that moved forward. It was side by side with both of those. So it was a really, I don't know, it's a really all-encompassing kind of thing. I couldn't separate the two from that juncture at that point. So everything that we did was thanks to this game. And I met these fantastic people that we stayed friends even after the show ended. And here we are again. We're starting another one. And all of that is thanks to this game. So competitive-wise, cards, take all of that aside. The people that I met during the course of our journey, the places that we went, and all the things we got to do, all thanks to this game and that show goes side by side. And that above anything else is probably my greatest takeaway from first edition. I love you guys. These guys know when I used to do emails that we would set up. I'm a softie at heart. I really am, and I appreciate everyone that was on the show. I appreciate the guys that were here, and I'm just appreciating that we're still here, being able to play games together.
So you basically covered off your entry into a gamer, and that's where I thought we could move to anyway. So do you want to carry on with your progression through competitive X-Wing?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. My very first competitive event, Chad attended with me, and his son joined me, and it was for the 2014. I was just looking back at the templates that I won. Regionals. This was our entryway into competitive play. That's where we got to meet the guys from Nova, and that was an eye-opening experience. I guess I didn't have any idea how much X-Wing we were going to be playing, how late that event ended up running. I think they ended up playing that until 2 a.m. That was fantastic because it's one of those things that you always feel like, okay, I can kind of beat the guys in the local area, but they're all kind of new to the game. No one really knows what's going on, so I didn't really have much of a gauge for how much of a grasp I had on the game. And you always go into a competitive event thinking, do I know the rules as well as I think I do? Do I have a good enough list? Am I good enough pilot? And I did pretty well. I made it into the top 8. I got the dice. I got the, hey, I did better than you. Made it into the dice, got to the dice, got the templates, all that fun stuff. Got to meet all the guys. I did end up losing in top 8, and there was a story behind that one. But that was my entryway into it. So the next event that came along after that, we didn't make it to nationals after that because, again, we didn't know any of the stuff. We didn't know anything about the schedule, didn't make anything like that.
Didn't know anything. He was geeking out. Hey, look, it's Paul Heaver. And I looked at him like, who the hell's Paul Heaver?
Right. Now you know. But for me, there was a lot of watching games on YouTube and being able to kind of get an idea for strategies. We were doing individual store events, like people like the guys not at Mr. Nice Guys, for example, would run run a monthly store event. And they've been doing that infinitum since the games started. So we'd go down there and play at events like that for competitively. We missed Worlds that year. And then the next year was the circuit that we went into it, where we were doing store championships, and we're all going to all of these locations. Like Chad's like, oh, there's a store championship here. We got to go. Okay. So we're driving 3 hours to Ohio to play in a 14-person store championship, where one of the greatest games of X-Wing I've ever seen takes place between Chad and Matt. His name's it's Matt Kelsey, the guy that looks like Biggs used to play X-Wing.
They called him Biggs.
They called him Biggs,
just like Biggs.
He looked just like him, and it was one of those scenarios where we could actually see something. If Chad shoots and they simultaneously kill each other, it'll be a draw. And it was amazing. Like, everyone was watching everything go blow by blow. Like, oh, he evaded. It was amazing. But like, just doing stuff like that, like the whole concept. All right, Chad's here at 6 a.m. We're cramming everyone into the car. People eating breakfast on the way to an event. We're driving 2.5 hours to go to this store championship. We're going 3 hours to that one. Just the traveling around and going to events, going to different stores, meeting different people. That was oodles and oodles of fun. Going to regionals, I think we made it to 2. I think you made it to 1 more regional than I did. Chad travels more than I do. I have the encumbrance, not necessarily, I wouldn't call them that, of 4 kids, a wife.
Not to faces, anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, not to their faces, but I don't have the amount of freedom to be able to go to every event. But Chad goes to all of them, and they're collecting all the cards, and then he goes to nationals, and then that was the year for Worlds. Like, we had to go to Worlds, and for that. For multiple reasons, it was a fantastic event. First and foremost, Nova Squadron Radio had been around for about a year at that point in time. We were really getting maybe a little bit over. Yeah,
because I think I went to a Worlds before you did.
Oh, maybe you're right. Yeah, you're right. You did go to Worlds before I did. So the second Worlds that rolled around, that's a 2015 one that I ended up going to. That was, the show had really gotten its legs under it. We were doing interviews. We had guys like Alex Davey on the show. We were interviewing, nationals and national championship winners and regional winners, and having a real feel for what the show was going on. The show had really taken its form by then. So to have the entire cast of Nova Squadron Radio, and we've done this show via Skype the entire time in its entirety, to have everyone in one place and everyone's behind a mic. That was fun. That was also the same year that I got to Nova Open. So I got to
I think we did Nova first, didn't we?
We did do Nova first.
Nova came first, yeah.
But it wasn't a nationals event. It was just a large tournament. It wasn't nationals at the time. It didn't have the prestige that it has now. But I got to spend a night and a couple of nights in a room with Chris. That I won that tour. I won that contest. That was awesome.
I won that too.
Yeah, you did win that one, because for me personally, myself, you had 8 people crammed in a room at Nova, and it was just Chris and I. I think I won no matter what. But so getting to meet Chris in person and hang out with him and play games with him on a table, not in Vassal, being able to play on the table with him, and then to meet up again and see Sean and all the guys up there at Roseville, meeting the developers that we had talked to, hanging out with Wade Boucher, doing interviews right there beside the judges' tables, right there, recording the show, pulling Nathan Ide off the table and be able to talk to him, pulling Paul off, talking to Mashari, like all of that in a culmination that was the highest point on for me. Competitively, I never got to make it back out to Worlds again due to family restrictions and job restrictions. Kids, yeah, well, they're getting older now, so it's getting a little bit easier. They're a little bit more self-sufficient, but you have to consider, my daughter was a baby whenever we went to Worlds.
Chris, never take this episode off YouTube. I want to constantly show this to his kids.
She was. But even just silly things like having a table constantly set up in the basement and playing games here, going to the game store every Tuesday night to play, like just getting into that ritual of playing games, because every game that you played was the preparation for the next tournament. What's the next store championship we're going to? This is the list I want to take. I want to try this out. We talk about it on the show. We play test it on the table. What's the next regionals? Where are we going to go? Looking at the maps and going, what regionals can we hit? We can probably hit these 3. Those are in our area. All of that, just competitively, it was just fantastic experience. And it really was just a ton of fun. For me, being the competitive minded person I am, you couldn't have asked for anything better. There was always something new coming up. There was always another tournament to prep for, and it all counted. It all counted towards something. You were getting alt art cards. You were getting those dice that you wanted to. You were getting your entry into Worlds. Just fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. And I can see this growing and continuing on in second edition. But for me, that was it was just an amazing experience. It really was. I feel like I've rambled on for long enough, so I'm going to pass the ball to whoever wants it next at this point.
Go, Chris.
So I get to be Ed now and be like all soppy and everything like that. So I remember X-Wing coming out and not really being that impressed with it. I was still in the Air Force in the UK, and we have a Royal Air Force Wargaming Association, which I was a member of. We meet up twice a year. And I was down at one of their events, and there were a couple of people playing X-Wing. I was like, pre-painted. I enjoy the painting side.
UK, so you had GW product at birth, right? Like your Rado was made from GW plastic?
1993, I think I bought my first GW product. I bought a set of the original Space Marines. When they repackaged them for £5, you got the 10 Space Marines with Beaky Marines. And
were they plastic or metal?
Plastic.
Very
I got
nice.
the original plastic Beakies, and then I bought some Orcs, but I bought Epic Orcs and regular Space Marines because I didn't know anything. I just bought some boxes. And I painted the Space Marines by dipping them into a tub of household paint. So the blue ones went in blue paint, the red one went in red paint, and then it was just a blob that didn't have legs anymore. It was just a blob of emulsion paint. So I evolved, and I still remember buying my first paint set. But that's been a big part of my life, like miniatures gaming, painting models, doing all of that. And X-Wing just didn't interest me. I was like, whatever. Then the year after, you had the Falcon and the Fire Spray. So it would have been the event after every 6 months. So the next wave was like, wave 3 was around then?
Wave 3.
Yeah.
Wave 3.
So there was a bit of depth to the game, and the people who were just playing each other the event before had set up like a demo event. So I think the way it worked out was that we have the championships where you do your competitive gaming, then an AGM where you turn up and drink beer and just play whatever.
Heck yeah.
And I gave it a go. I think I was running a Y-Wing, and I was like, I had the Ion turret on it. I was like, this is really good. The positioning and trying to get that bubble and and trying the TIE fighters and the Interceptor, seeing how everything worked and representing the ships, even in that just small 1-ship, 2-ship type game. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So then I picked up everything that was still left in the store at the event, and then moved to Canada and sold it all. So when I got here, I had to make decisions on what I could pack and what I could bring. So I sold off all of my X-Wing and brought all of my Spartan Games Dystopian Wars stuff. Mistake, by the way, just in case anyone doesn't know. So that
game folded correctly.
The company folded, yeah. So I rebought all of the X-Wing stuff, and then I was listening to. I remember you talking on the podcast. I used to listen to you guys, and I remember you talking about how it might have been off air actually, but how frustrated you were that someone had already taken the name the X-Wing podcast. Because I used to listen to Ben Curry and Ben Johnson on the X-Wing podcast. Because I used to listen to him on Bad Dice as well. And that's a Warhammer podcast, in case you didn't know. And listening to it, growing my understanding of the game when it was still quite small in Calgary. So I helped build a community here. And then around about the time we met was, I believe I'd just left Calgary and was in Cold Lake at the time. So I was not getting to play as much, but I'd just been to Canadian Nationals, and played Ron Howard and stuff like that. And I've got the same events as Ed as my highlights, playing at Canadian Nationals, playing at, Nova Open, playing at Worlds, and they all have similar stories. And it's my competitive career would be, I'm the guy who misses the cut by 1 MOV. I don't make the cut to a big event, but
what the hell? I missed one by a 1 point or 2, and I think that was the 2016 regionals. I missed the cut by 1. Yeah, I know the feeling. It's so frustrating.
I was going to say, I think you missed a cut by about 10 points. Logan got in at a store championship, and you didn't.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a store champion. It was a regionals. I think it was the regionals where we went down. That was the one where
West Virginia?
No.
So
I'll think about it. I'll let Chris finish his thought. I'll think about it.
For Canadian Nationals, I was running Han and 2 PS1 A-Wings with Prockets, because Prockets had just come out. Auto thrusters didn't exist yet, so I was running hull upgrade on them. I had PS11 Han and 2 PS1 Procket A-Wings. And I missed out on the cut because Ron beat me. And then my friend Greg,
was that the one where Ron was running the double Falcon list, by the way?
No, that's where he lost to a double Falcon list. So
that's right. He was running 4B1Z.
Because
right. I remember this now.
That was the one they called time on him in the final round.
Yeah.
But I think I could have beat that Falcon list because the Prockets just wreck Falcons. That's what they were in there for. And Greg got matched against the 2 Falcons because I'd beat Greg. So he got matched against the Falcons, and if he won, would have still made the cut. I got matched against Ron, and if I'd won, I made the cut. If we'd swapped opponents, I feel like we could have both made it because he was running Whisper, which I think would have done better against 4BZ. And
I agree.
And I think I had the makings of the 2 Falcon list. But it was...
back in those days, they didn't even have MOV then.
Yeah, it was strength of schedule.
Yep. And win-loss, that was it.
Yeah. Then... So I've lost that one. There was no excuses for that one. I just played badly against Ron. He massively outplayed me. Was much better than me, and probably still is. Then Nova was, I think I can say it on air now. I think enough, statute of limitations has passed. That was the guy who was flopping his dice onto the table.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for the record, for those who may not know that story, that was the guy that would hold him in his hand, look at him, shake him, and then just toss him.
Yeah.
And I'm still surprised you didn't say something.
So I said stuff to his face. I asked him to stop doing it. I'm a victim of my own. I always tell people. I think we spoke about it last time. Yeah, but in fact, we've talked to Chad about it. If you don't call a judge, nothing happens.
Yeah.
So I was running. That was my regenerating Han. That was regenerating Miranda. So I did the scummy Miranda build before everyone else because I opened my K-Wing at Nova.
And put it in a list. Yeah. And you did pretty well with it, actually.
Yeah, if I'd have won that game, I made the cut. Because my MOV was pretty good then, I think. And then...
I made the cut at that event.
Yeah.
I got a map. I'm actually... I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. Here's the map that I won at that event.
Yeah. It was a really good fun event. Nice. We getting to play you in the Epic game where we just rushed through it so we could go and do other things.
Well, and we were talking about this off camera. That was the event where FFG was being represented. It was
Frank and Wade.
Pache was the
Frank and Wade.
It was where we have to meet the Frank Brooks. And they were having a closed session rap about things. I don't even know. I'm trying to remember.
It was the Force Awakens car set.
That's what it was. That's exactly what it was. And they were answering questions from the fans there. We weren't allowed to record during that because obviously they were under LFL kind of restrictions. But we were able to kind of get into that event. And were we allowed to record in that event? I'm trying to remember now.
I don't think anyone recorded it. I think it was a different age, shall we say.
Yes.
A different time.
I would agree. A different time. But this was 30 people crammed into a back room kind of thing. This wasn't anything like what they did for nationals or anything like that now, like where they've got a conference room full of hundreds of people that are cheering when stuff comes up. Like none of that happened back then. But that, even just doing that, like going to dinner with Frank and Wade that night and chilling and hanging out with those guys, like that was like the real connection. Like, hey, we know people that work for the company that make this game. It was amazing.
My first ever trip to Buffalo Wild Wings.
I remember that. Wade and I used to play on the old Star Wars Battlefront. Wade Pouchet I think he's still on OP even now.
He is. He just did an interview on OCX with Chris Brown.
Oh, fantastic.
Jerry was saying that we should get him on here.
I'd love to talk to Wade again. He and I used to play on Star Wars Battlefront. We used to do fighter assaults together. It was awesome.
And then after that was Worlds and missing the cut again because I couldn't kill Siggy. You know this guy, is Scandinavian bloke. Siggy was running Corran Horn and 2 Greys with TLT.
Oh yeah, the Outer Rim Smuggler guys. Yeah, yes, I do remember that.
And I couldn't kill his Corran Horn with like 3, just ships chasing him. I had Vader, Karnor, and the shuttle. I traded the shuttle for both of his TLTs, and then Corran.
That was the TLT meta. Oh, I totally forgot about that. You're right.
And I just couldn't kill it. It was so annoying. And then missed a cut on that one. Mathematically, I think if you do the math wing on it, it was about right, but it just felt really frustrating because the variance was I shot Corran like 7 turns in a row and never did more than 1 damage to him, which he regened. And then to keep behind him and keep shooting him, I had to do 1 K turn. So I had 1 time where Vader got shot and I died.
Oh.
It wasn't even a double tap. I just died.
Just flat out died.
Yeah.
That was to kind of not to step on your toes on this a little, but that was the event was the fastest competitive game I ever played. Was it Worlds? And I'm not talking about the 9-year-old that I got paired with on round 1.
I get these 9-year-old children
who didn't even have enough rocks to play the game, and I had to go and hunt down Frank and say, hey, he doesn't have any rocks. Do you have any extras? They went in the back and got him one so he could actually participate in the event. Mine was my 3rd round opponent who was bringing quad TLTs, and I had been practicing for weeks against quad TLT lists on Vassal, and that game literally 15 minutes from start to finish. Because I knew this is the first iteration of playing Palp Aces. That was the Fel Vader Palpatine list. Knew exactly how to fight that list.
I think you'll find everyone. It was the Karnor Kagi Palpatine with Vader. That's what I ran. Because I had to do it differently.
You did have to do it differently. But that was the fastest game. By the time, like, the other guys on the tables beside us were just getting through turn 1, and we were sweeping up and moving on to the next round. I mean, that was a highlight. I love that. He looked at it and goes, he's like, but my friends told me this was a good list. And I'm like, yeah, I've practiced about 80 games against that list. I know how to beat it. That was oodles of fun.
I've still never lost a competitive game to quad TLTs. Not one.
I lost league games to it when that list first came out. That was when I was running the Decimator Rear Admiral Churner. That was when the Rackfell list was out. And that Decimator just got decimated by quad TLTs. It was just god awful. Because every one, it's bam, there's damage. Bam, 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 bam. Each round, it was god awful.
Yeah, you've got to... it's all about the trade with TLT. It's irrelevant now anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, that's old. TLTs don't exist anymore.
Don't joist. Get good. It's easy. Job done.
Well, back in those days, you couldn't get out of range of, because they're 360 degrees all the time. Like, you could try blocking them. Sometimes that helped, but the ones behind them were still doing damage, and it was just, ugh.
You use the asteroids, you get your obstructed. You don't get the range bonus, but you get obstructed. You get in. You make sure when you build the list, you don't fail in that phase of the game. If you can't remove a Y-wing in 1 turn, you've built your list wrong.
Yep.
And make sure all of your ships shoot one of theirs. But don't line up and fly forwards while they fly forwards, because then you lose.
Yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way, and that's when I ended up switching lists to Fel Vader Palpatine and never looked back. I to this day, if I pull out my ships right now, it's a Palp Aces list, one way or the other.
That was like the big 3 events. I've been to Worlds since then, and I tend to go with coverage and stuff now, which is what rolls on to where it gets a little bit soppy. Of like X-Wing has honestly changed my life, really. When I started playing was making friends in Canada, which led to making friends all over the world, ultimately led to a career change and made me what I am now, doing this, having this YouTube channel at all, and doing these podcasts and having Dice Hate be a business, and it's into its 3rd year of operation. I didn't go out of business in the first 2 years. I still don't pay myself any money, but I did my tax return for the company, and it made $47 profit.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I wrote that off against the $1,500 loss that it made the previous year, and it let me do this. It let me like work in a game store and meet these people and do these things that I'm forever thankful for. I always have a soft spot for all FFG games because of that. So
yeah,
soppy times, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, my friend. Right there with you. All right, so let's get to the non-soppy player, Chad. pull us out of the kumbaya moment here.
All right, competitive career, huh?
Correct.
Let's see. Well,
because you have a long history of competitive.
I do, yeah.
You go to more tournaments.
I do. So, yeah, basically, like you said, I mean, we started off doing kitchen table stuff and all that, went to our first tournament, which was a regionals, and I got to watch you geek out over a guy named Paul Heaver, who I was just like, okay, who the hell's that?
I recall he's standing
he's
in
world
line.
champ. Look, he's got the satchel thing or whatever it was he had. And
you have to understand that, like, right before I had watched him play a game, one of Team Covenant's games, and I heard his voice and I saw the bag and I went, oh crap, the world champion's here. That's that moment where you start going, okay, I wonder what second place is going to feel like.
Yeah. But it was like, all right, whatever. And, you know, we met Chris and Roy and Ron and Paul, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching Paul play, and damned if it wasn't the truth. He makes pew-pew noises occasionally while he plays, and I'm just like, all right, that's the world champ making pew-pew noises. Let's go.
Still does.
But from there,
when the ships are moving.
Yeah. From there, I mean, we hit up a lot of like smaller tournaments and all that. The show got rolling.
You were the unofficial mascot of Nova Squadron Radio because everyone recognized your voice. No matter where you went.
The beard, the Big Gulp Cup. But we started advertising for Nova Open. It was the first year they were running X-Wing. And we talked to Mike Brandt a couple times and went down to that tournament.
If you are able to hear this while you're at Nova Open or we're just there and you didn't get a chance to hang out with Mike Brandt, you've made a mistake in your life.
Yeah.
Cool cat. All he wants to do is make sure that everybody's having a good time. That's the only thing that interests him. The Nova Foundation is completely nonprofit. Like, they don't retain any of the money that they're keeping for that. He's only interested in spreading joy of gaming. Very cool human being, Mr. Mike Brandt.
He is. If you don't get to hang out with me, I definitely recommend. He should have been first on your list. Go up to the lounge. They usually play some music up there in the evening.
You might catch Mike drumming away on a guitar while he's up there having some drinks.
Go up, sing along. They love that stuff. But no, I mean, we started out the show and it was only a few months going. I'm standing in line at the Nova Open, and there's a gentleman behind me, and I'm just like, oh, hey, how's it going? We're waiting for them to open up registration. He's like, oh, not too bad. And I'm like, they're taking 40K players ahead because they have to start first. They had an earlier start time, and I told him, I said, if you're playing 40K, go ahead around. And he's like, no, I'm here playing X-Wing. I said, really? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm here playing X-Wing too. And then he starts looking at me and he's like, oh, your voice sounds familiar. Aren't you? I'm like, oh, I'm Chad from Nova Squadron Radio. He goes, oh, yeah, I know you. You're the guy who's talking about his son on the show. So, I mean, I find out that this was the one X-Wing player I really wanted to go meet because we talked to Mike Brandt and he said there was a guy coming from Kuwait. And that's our good friend Mashari. And it turns out I was standing right
Beast from the
there.
Middle East.
Beast from the Middle East. I was standing right there next to him, and I introduced myself. He introduced himself. I found out that my son, the evil genius, was known halfway across the world because of Nova Squadron Radio.
Another cool cat, really. We spent Worlds. We didn't talk X-Wing, with the exception of the interview we did with him at Worlds. He and I did not talk X-Wing at all. We talked Game of Thrones. We talked all kinds of other.
Oh, he plays like everything. He was
even
big
game
on
stuff.
Netrunner.
Like he and I were talking like book stuff, like Game of Thrones book stuff. Like that. He's just Mashari's just fantastic. He's an amazing person.
Because I know he got into the card game FFG put out for Game of Thrones, and then he was also in the Netrunner, and he's one of those guys where he dominates wherever he plays.
Oh, yeah, no, because he's that good. He really is that good.
Oh, he is. It was a real small tournament that first year for X-Wing, and I eventually got to play against him, and he promptly kicked my teeth in, but
He's pretty good.
Yeah, we all got together. Ron Brand and Chris Online was down there, and Roy. We were all Nova Squadron Radio back then. Ed wasn't there. We took a picture. I was trying to find it to share with everybody for right this moment, but all of us took a picture. It was everybody from Nova Squadron Radio together, and we left a gap in the middle because Ed didn't show up.
I appreciated that.
But from there, I mean, I hit all kinds of store championships. I would go down to the Virginia into like the Nova area itself, where Nova Squadron was from, and I'd hit up a lot of their store championships, or if I was visiting people down there and just a regular tournament was going on, I'd hit those up. And basically, like you said, I became kind of the mascot of the show. We had business cards Roy had printed up, and I went through a stack of those. Yeah, no, I handed out tons of those cards, going around to all different tournaments, trying to get people to listen to the show. I basically would go out, meet everybody, say hi. People would come up to me at tournaments where it'd be like, oh, I went to Gen Con the one year. And I had people coming up to me from a couple tables over after they finished their game. They're like, are you Chad from Nova Squadron Radio? I'd be like, yeah. They're like, I thought I heard that voice. And it's just like, it just became a thing of where, I could just sit there, go into a room and just go, hey, everybody. And like everybody would practically turn their heads to look to see where that came from. The Novas I've been to, like I said, I've been to Gen Con, all the store championships. I've been to 2 Worlds.
I did want to kick on one other thing from Worlds too. And I know you had talked about it. I hate Steph and I. Worlds for me was fantastic. When I sit down and think about it, he brought me up when I was talking about Ziggy. Ziggy was from Iceland. And I think about the people that we talked to while we were at that World. I had friends from Iceland. We had Mashari from the Middle East. I had the French national champion that we had talked to. We had Morgan Reed and the guys from Australia. We had, what was the guy's name from Mexico who did the Palp tokens that I still use to this day?
Irvis? Is that
maybe,
his online name?
But I mean, I literally had met people from all corners of the world, and they all listened to our show and all knew who we were. That was a mind-blowing moment for me. It really was.
It was extremely awesome. I was just trying to look here real quick. I got a bunch of different I think I must have cleaned them up at some point. But like I had all kinds of different messages on my Facebook Messenger. People would send me, hey, I saw you at this event, Like I met Ola, who was from oh crap, I don't want to get this wrong. It was Norwegian, Sweden area. I'm sorry, man. I'm drawing up the Viking area.
That area.
But no, like I met him. He was a big fan of the show, and I met a couple guys from England. The one guy was like, oh, his wife yells at him all the time. So on the next time I was on Nova Squadron Radio, I made sure to, tell her to, hey, quit messing with the dial and let him listen to the show. And he had he sent me a message on Messenger. It was like, that was so hilarious that you called her out for me. And but like, no, man, we just meeting all the people. But yeah, that like he said, dude from Mexico brought us the PAL tokens,
which I use to this day.
Yeah, love the PAL tokens. We had lots of fun just meeting people, and that's mainly what I was doing. I was meeting people. I was getting the show's name out there, and then just doing some
Let's not forget that we've got to cover some of your highlights competitively.
Competitively, yes, there was like you said, the store championship we went to in Ohio, where I played the most epic game against Biggs. That was they didn't realize that only the last round was untimed.
Yeah.
This was like a semifinal round, and I played against a list that was extremely similar to mine. And that went on for 2.5 hours?
Yep. And it was, everybody was wrapped around this one table because everything else was done. And they were, if you won, you moved on and you played Mike Jones. If you didn't, well, and the funny part is we were thinking about it while the game, we were hoping and waiting until the end because you had initiative. So even if you two would have simo-killed each other, you still would have won the game. It was so epic. But you did. Yeah. You ended up losing to Mike Jones in that one, and then we went to West Virginia in the following week.
I did lose to Mike Jones, and I kind of blamed the whole 2.5 hour. Oh, excuse me, 2.5 hour game against Biggs, and the fact that I drove there that morning.
Yes, you did.
I was exhausted by the time I hit that Mike Jones match. But then, yeah, we ended up going to a store championship in West Virginia, and after the Swiss rounds, and we get into that top 8. Top 8, I ended up playing some guy who had a Han list, and I was running pre-nerf Whisper and 4 TIE fighters, and I kind of kicked his teeth in, and then I beat one of the locals. Yeah,
top 4. You beat me in top 4.
Was it top? No,
it wasn't top table. We did not play each other.
No, it was top 8 because I played you, and then I played the guy with he had a Rebel list also, but he was more X-wings and such.
That's what
because they wanted to sit there and tell me I couldn't decloak through that X-wing. And it was just like, no, I totally can, and it fits. It's a 2, and I'm going from one side of the X-wing to the other. It fit.
Yep.
But no, I ended up winning that semifinal game. And then I get to the top table, and one of the biggest thorn in my side opponents I've ever had to fly against, the Evil Genius, he was running a core and dash list.
Final table.
That was on the final table, and me and him threw down and went at it pretty hard, and I actually came out victorious on that one. So, yeah, I had to win a store championship, I had to beat down Ed and then defeat my son somehow, which it's a tough call.
For those of you who ever get the opportunity to play Logan competitively somewhere, he is a tough win.
He is. The biggest thing I had going for me was the fact that was pre-nerf Whisper.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before Mangler Cannon. So everybody on Dash flew HLC, and it created the donut hole.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm going to decloak and then move into that donut hole no matter what you're doing pretty much.
Yep.
And,
all the days.
And he just, I mean, the TIE fighters were easy pickings, but Whisper was just able to avoid, Dash because of the donut hole. And I immediately took Corrin out first thing. Because I knew if I took Corrin out, then I could just put Whisper in that donut hole all day. But he put up a hell of a fight. And like I said,
before I did.
Yep.
Now, that being said, I did get a little retribution for us, anyway, as a local gaming crew. I spent a year in Columbus. I'm going to be remiss if I don't mention this. Dave Carver, Mike Jones, John Mesmore, all the guys out from Columbus welcomed me with open arms. I remember going onto the FFG forum saying, hey, I'm moving to Columbus. Where do I play X-Wing there? And Dave Carver jumped right out to me and says, oh, no, I'll tell you where to go. I'll show you where the store name. And I spent a great year hanging out with those guys, playing with those guys. Mike Jones and I rode planes to and from Worlds together. Fantastic guy. He's a really cool cat. I love Mike, but I had to beat Mike and he is an excellent player. I had to beat Mike to get my store championship from him, and that was a crown in my jewel, a jewel in my crown right there was beating Mike Jones, because that's not an easy win either. You should know.
Yeah. Well, the funniest thing is that year that I won that store championship, West Virginia had gone up to Pittsburgh and won their store championship.
Pittsburgh came to ours and won ours.
Pittsburgh came to ours and won ours, and I went to West Virginia and won theirs.
Oh, that was so much fun. Good times.
Yeah, the traveling around I did. I mean, I went out to that Kappa Cup where we got snowed in.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. Was the first Kappa Cup where they got snowed in. Like they had a blizzard, like a literal blizzard, and got snowed in.
Played X-Wing and Imperial sold out at that one, and it was like, oh, yep, so here we are on the next day, and everybody snowed in. We had to spend an extra night. And, of course, after I go to bed and wake up in the morning, I got a couple things I'm doing, and then I'm on the road to the last 1.0 Nova Open, so
it's a long, strange trip. It's been a good one.
It has. I've been all over the place. I've racked up tons and tons of miles. I've hung out with Wade and Alex and Frank.
If you had to take a guess, how many states have you played X-Wing in?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. About 4 or 5, I want to say.
So did you go to the Nationals down in Indianapolis?
Yeah.
So PA, you've played in Ohio, you've played in West Virginia, you've played in Virginia, you've played in Indianapolis, you've played in Minnesota.
Yep.
That's 6 states.
I think I've played in, did you say Maryland?
No, 7.
So yeah, I mean, I've played in a lot of different states. I've played against lots of different opponents. I've met all kinds of people. I played a game against the guy who did the cartoon where, you know, the guy and his kid are getting in the X-Wing, and then the wife comes back, and there's Star Wars stuff everywhere, and he's like,
mistakes happen.
I actually played him. His name's David. I played him out in Worlds the one year.
Dave.
Oh, okay.
They do the Minoc podcast.
Yeah. I played against him, and just like I said, like lots and lots of people. I played this one guy at Worlds. It was the only guy I beat that day, and it really frustrated him.
Oh, come on. We're reminiscing. We have to reminisce a little with our light rivalry with the Pittsburgh group.
Yeah.
And clearly one of the better players down there, Ryan Fleming. You were his only loss, and you also bumped him out of the cut, if I'm not mistaken.
It was at the end of the day, yes, I did not win a single game that day except the one I won against him. But my biggest win was the end of the day. Whenever I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, I went 3 and I think it was 4 or 3 and 5 because I had to buy one round because I was doing so bad that day. And then the very final round, my opponent had dropped and never told anybody. So it's like, well, give it 10 minutes. If your opponent doesn't show up, then you get the win. So it was like, okay, so I'm telling them, yeah, I went 3 and whatever. And then Linda's standing right next to me, and she goes, well, yeah, it's because you got to buy and your other opponent didn't show up.
And Ryan's like, wait,
watch
I'm
the
only
vein about shoot out of his forehead.
If you want to frustrate, if you're anywhere to get the opportunity to play Ryan Fleming, fantastic guy. You'll be able to tell him because he's going to be wearing a red Millennium Falcon t-shirt and Army shirts. He wears the same thing every time to every event. If you want to frustrate Ryan Fleming, ask him how good are TIE Defenders in first edition with the title, and you will see this man, like, he will just go completely berserk because at that point in time he's still angry at that card and that list. He also went on to win the first. They weren't called system opens back then. Yeah, they were. They're still system opens. He was one of the ones to bring the quad TLT list, and he represented the U.S. in the UK at Star Wars Celebration. So fantastic guy, fantastic player. But it's so much fun to kind of have that little, the sort of, I'll bring a sports analogy, sort of like the Steelers Cleveland Browns rivalry. Like, we're the small team that always, the Latrobe squad that always kind of get beat up, but just to beat them once, every once in a while, just to take those guys down a peg, it's so much fun.
Oh, yeah. But like I said, I mean, just going out and meeting all the people and playing against everybody and getting all those great games in and making all kinds of acquaintances and, you know, getting interviews for the show. It's been a long, fun ride. and it's going to keep going.
Keep on rolling. All right, Chris, what else do you got on the docket for questions or topics?
That about covers it, I suppose. I think you said you wanted to talk about stuff that you wish had happened.
Stuff that you wish had happened. Either ships you wish were added to the games, pilots you wish were added to the games, characters from the Star Wars universe that you wish were added to the game, or other things inside of X-Men First Edition that you wish would have happened. Anything
Chris
else?
is like shaking his head and laughing. He's waiting for me to say Anakin Skywalker and the Boo Starfighter.
It's not even that. I've got a feeling I know one of the things Ed's going to say, and it's one that just bothers me, but it's fine. I'll wait and see if he says it, and then I'll counter.
Okay, so the first thing I wish that they had done was I wish that they had done something more with Epic. Other than the casual, hey, look, we've got these cool ships. It's $100 to get this one upgrade card when you're talking about C-3PO, because nobody ran Leia, nobody ran Han crew card. It was all about buying C-3PO in the CR90. And then you had these really, really big, expensive ships that still sit in my case. And for the most part, if it hadn't been, we were remiss if we didn't even talk about
Outrider Cup.
The Outrider Cup, the 3 backyard brawl kind of thing between the West Virginia team. Started off with the West Virginia team, the Pittsburgh team, and the Latrobe team as 3 teams, and it's kind of expanded to a much, much larger event now. Columbus is now involved. Tennessee was involved. Chicago's involved. There's so many teams that are kind of going to, and that event expanded through. Again, credit to Ryan Fleming and the guys from West Virginia for the idea, and that show that kind of expanded throughout the lifespan of the show. But that was the only time we ever played Epic. So you have these ships that you spent money on, and they could have done so much more. They could have done store kits that were specifically targeted toward Epics, done alt art cards, and I get they did do that for the One Worlds, where they just took the same art and just put the Worlds logo over top
Multiple
of it.
worlds.
Yeah,
right.
You need to go to more stuff.
They could have done more. They could have created a complete competitive circuit for Epic if they wanted to. Now, I get that it's a bigger game, but other game stores are used to doing big events like Warhammer 40K tournaments. There are places that run big GTs for Warhammer 40K. They could have found the room for places like that. And they could have found room in X-Wing First Edition to make Epic a more competitive and a more prominent thing on the circuit. And they never did. I felt like it was a missed opportunity, and I really wish that they had. So that's the first one I'll toss out there of things I wish they had done in First Edition. That's not the one you were going to counter?
No.
What else you got, Ed?
We can do round table.
Yeah, I was hoping for a round table. I didn't want to dominate the conversation on that.
I wish they'd have nerfed stuff sooner in the game cycle that would have potentially led to not trying to buff stuff with cards.
Yeah.
If they'd have done what we did to the Jumpmaster right at the start, and that was just how they handled balance, I feel like we'd be in a completely different place right now.
In the game, yeah, because they ended up trying to correct the game through upgrade cards and not having that ability to be able to go like they do now to be able to adjust points or anything like that. I think the first taste of that probably came with TLT, but more than likely was Whisper and the cloaking mechanic and how that worked.
I think the Aces packs were when they started just blatantly just buffing stuff. So auto thrusters coming out.
The title card for the TIE Defender.
The Royal Guard title to try and give intercepts a lift. Chardan refit.
To the A-Wings. Yeah, basically dropping them down points.
Yeah. Those rebalancing packs were needed if that was the approach we're going to take. But I would have liked to see them do something like just reprice the card, put out an FAQ and errata, and then give that card out as an alternate art in like seasonal kits. Make it one that's really easy to get hold of. That's what they did for Imperial Assault when they rebalanced cards in that. They just put them out in the next seasonal kit. So that's what I would have liked to see.
They could have come out a lot faster. And I think the thing was weird for me is that they had precedents in the game where they rebalanced points, especially in Imperial Assault, where they recognized that there was a mistake and they altered the points in the FAQ. They could have done that in X-Wing.
The sooner you do it in a game's life cycle, the sooner you acknowledge to not even to the public, but just to yourself that it's probably going to be needed at some point. Obviously, looking forwards to 2.0, that's one of the things I'm most excited about. Yes. But seeing as this is a reflections video, that would have, had they done that, I feel like Force Awakens core set could have been 2.0 and everything would have been fine.
Yeah. And considering the life cycle, like, I don't know how far in advance that they are testing stuff for the next wave, or if they're 1 wave, 2 wave, or 3 waves ahead. If they're testing stuff for the 3 waves ahead and these 2 things have already gone off to the printer and they find that there is a mistake made, it would take up to 8 to 10 to 12 months before whatever fix was coming. So it would literally wipe ships completely out of the meta, where you had ships that just never saw play at all, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Well, those playtesters need to get good.
How about you, Chad? I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's another highlight that I think we missed.
Oh, so go ahead.
Well, I believe all 3 of us have had credits on one ship or another. Is that right?
Correct.
So,
correct.
Being able to be involved in the in a very small way in the like design and growth and like creating the game that gave us so much, I think was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to be part of that. I think our NDAs have kind of run out, and we're not on.
You can talk about the final state of a ship. You can't talk about previous incarnations or stuff that never came. But you're allowed to acknowledge the fact that you were attested because your name's in the credit.
I wasn't even going to go down that route. I think when we became part of the playtest material and we got to see some of the stuff that was coming out, at the beginning of the show, we had a couple of guys on the show. Ron Brandon was kind of on the show, but Chris Nolan was also part of the show, and he had to step away from the show. And his reasons for stepping away from the show were logical, because he was part of those early playtests, all the way up to like wave 9, 10. I think he was still on the playtest team. And what he was afraid of was that he was going to let something slip out publicly on the show that was not publicly known, that was not public knowledge. So he felt that it was best if he stepped away. And once we started getting in some of those chairs that were regular, it was just easier for him to slip out. For me, it was a very similar situation where I knew things that were coming out that I couldn't talk about. And I was afraid if we were playing the games at home and we were testing out Scum. Before Scum was before Scum was a thing. We were playtesting some of that stuff. And it was tough for me to correct myself and not say something that I shouldn't. And it just became easier to not have to bother. Because it's interesting that you've heard the developer say the same sentence. You're never actually playing X-Wing it was meant to play. You're only ever playing it in snippets and bits. You never really get the full thing when you're playtesting it. And that was kind of the scenario that I felt that we were in. So at some point in time, it just became, I made the decision. I didn't want to violate an NDA, like we almost did when we had to edit down a certain person's interview who was talking about stuff in the interview that was not released information, that I had to edit 3/4 of the interview going, you can't talk about that, you can't talk about that, you can't talk about, because we had an agreement, nothing written, but an agreement with Alex Davey and the development team that we would never say anything on the show, because they were aware of us. We were, and I'm not patting our own backs.
Listen to us.
Yeah, not only did they listen to us, but we were the #1 X-Wing podcast for a really, really long time. They didn't want anything to slip. So we had
there were only like 2.
There were 3, thank you very much. And there were others that had spawned after that, and we still kept them going. I mean, at some point in time, we kind of lost a little bit of steam, and others kind of have taken the mantle, and good for them. I'm glad for them. I have no rivalries or anything like that.
But we plan on taking it back.
We plan on taking it back.
We're the best 2.0 podcast. That's
right. But it came down to that point where I didn't want to ruin the show, and I didn't want to ruin my relationship with the folks, the good guys over at FFG, and I didn't want to make a mistake and get into trouble with LFL. So I stayed into the forums. I kept watching stuff, but we never talked about anything that wasn't going on in the playtest. So it was cool to be able to be a part of that. But then then I immediately saw the reasons why Chris stepped away from the show for doing that.
I have a good cognitive disconnect. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's all fine here. Although I still call ailerons flappy wings. So that was the design name, and it's stuck. I can't not because it's just so
Can't
funny.
not call them that. For me, I think I remember on the show arguing a point that decloaking used to subtract 2 from the attack and add 2 to the defense. And that was the original design for how cloaking device works.
Yeah, it's how it works, but not because you can put it on a different ship. Yeah,
it was implicitly written on the card originally how it worked. And I remember saying it on the show one time, and everyone's correcting me, no, that's not how it works. I'm like, oh, I must have gotten that confused. And it didn't dawn on me until several months later, oh, that was the playtest version of the card that had come out of my mouth. And that's when I recognized immediately that was a mistake. Now, luckily, it didn't cause any effect. The card never ended up being that way, but that was a slip up on my part that should never have happened.
Oh, there's loads of good memories for 1.0, and that's what I like to focus on. I don't worry about any of the garbage.
Oh, yeah, no.
I think last week we were chatting about some of the card creep and the power creep. I remember when we used to have Bob on talking about the power curve and all of that stuff, and it's only natural that when you have that many cards in the game, it's going to happen. And I'd much rather focus on these memories of 1.0, and that's why I said earlier that I'm not going to burn my stuff. I enjoyed the 5 years or 6 years that X-Wing has been around, so...
And someday maybe you'll crack it out of the box and play, oh, you remember the good old days when we did it this way?
No, I will just... Go. Sorry, no, it's good.
I do have a couple of things I wish that they had added to X-Wing that they never did. Why did we never get a Yoda card?
Boom, trapped you.
Okay, so this is the one you were waiting for. So
Yoda and Obi-Wan. I knew you were going to talk about one of them.
So
because
Obi-Wan,
it's stupid.
Okay, I would have agreed with you right up until they added Emperor Palpatine and they added Jabba the Hutt.
So, what part would you have liked Yoda to play?
I think he would have been a crew. I think I would have imagined him as a crew.
Well, obviously.
So, are you gonna put him in the pack where it's just that little spinny ship that flies in from Kashyyyk to Dagobah, or are you gonna have his Force Ghost? Because those are your only options. Because Palpatine can jump on a shuttle and fly around the galaxy. Yoda's like in hiding on Dagobah. Get a grip.
Well, we'll get it. Maybe we'll get him with the with the Clone Wars.
In Clone Wars, whatever, man. Well, I'll all for it. Have Yoda pilot. I don't care.
In a Jedi Starfighter. Oh man!
but when it was exclusively Galactic Civil War era, there's no need for an Obi-Wan card or a Yoda card.
You could make that same argument for a lot of the characters and pilots that they put into the game, though.
And I believe I did. Asajj Ventress is dead. She can't be in the game.
Yep, and she is.
Spoilers.
Yeah, in case you didn't watch Clone Wars, she dies. But yeah, so that's another good example. So if they can take a character who is dead by the time that this era is happening, how is she in the game? And it's
Maul.
Maul. There you go. Well, although Maul comes back, so.
Not
Hey, if you haven't seen Solo and haven't seen the closing credit scene for Solo, there's something wrong with you.
I don't know. There's a lot for I understand why people want them because they're iconic characters. But it bothers me having Obi-Wan as Old Man Obi-Wan in Imperial Assault. So I'm like, unless we're playing on Tatooine, I feel like this is cheating.
Obi-Wan could have been a crew card on the Falcon.
Yeah, I can see
he was a crew on the Falcon. I'm just saying, if we want to go down canon and what was actually on film, he was a crew member.
That's fine. I'm more likely to seed Obi-Wan than I am Yoda.
Yeah.
But you went with Yoda, so you gave me the easy win.
Yeah, and you're right. I kind of set that one up, knocked it out of the park. You're right, and I agree thematically from your point of view. It did make sense for him. It's going to make much more sense to see him in the Clone Wars era ships, and I'm looking forward to that. But that was always something that, again, like you said, it's an iconic Star Wars character. They're all there, except there's no representation from the Jedi side. There's no older Obi-Wan even as a crew card. There's no older Yoda. There were areas that you could have put stuff in.
Hello.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen more done with asteroids in the game. So it's a mechanic that has basically stayed the same from its iteration. Now, granted that we did add things like debris fields, but for all intents and purposes, they're static during the course of the thing. So, like, weird things, like if you wanted to get into Empire Strikes Back, like, well, rig cargo sheets one, but like, why couldn't someone take the Space Worm as an upgrade, and if you got onto it, it actually ate the ship? Like, I could have seen something like that. I mean, make it
smaller asteroids, though.
Yeah,
right. Make it an absurd point cost, 15 points for the thing. But how cool would it have been to be able to put a Space Worm token down on an asteroid? If you come if you come within range one of that rock, it's gonna eat you. Or I saw other games.
It's a pretty small rock that TIE fighters are dodging around. It's not like the Falcon can park inside any of these rocks.
That's true, but you get into that second point where if we're talking about the scene from Empire Strikes Back, like, why didn't the rocks move? Why couldn't they have developed some type of mechanic where either the rocks all moved or some type of template?
They're moving up and down though.
Oh, they're moving up and down. That's all they're doing.
You're not. I would have liked. So I played Aeronautica Imperialis before I played X-Wing.
This is another thing I was going to ask too.
Having the range in that where if you were the same altitude, you rolled your normal attack dice. If you're an altitude above or below, you only rolled one less attack die, simulating that. And then you had, beyond that, you were too far out of elevation to be able to shoot. That represents the cone of a fire arc rather than just the triangle.
It's a big complaint about people. Well, it's a space game, but it's 2D. It doesn't make sense to me that ships bump into each other.
So I don't understand how people can complain that it's a space game and then complain that ships bump into each other, because all ships should have a 0 if it's a space game.
Good argument.
None of X-Wing, none of the original ships work in space, because they all have maneuverability from the back, which generates thrust.
Yes.
In space.
Yes.
So,
well, now we're getting into real world physics. Yeah. Don't dare bring real world physics into my space game.
I mean, there's a Battlestar Galactica game coming out, which looks pretty interesting, other than I don't know what they'll do for ships and content for it. But
I'm curious
Battlestar
about that myself.
Galactica space fights are pretty cool to watch because you have the maneuvering thrusters and everything. On the Vipers, it's pretty cool. But I don't know, it's space. You have the Force. You have non-thrust, like inertia generating propulsion. Yeah. So
like the engines are always on.
Yeah.
In space, you would just exponentially increase your speed if you continue to do that. Like, literally, all you would need is a burst to get to the momentum of the speed, and then your engines can stop. There's no reason to burn any more fuel. You're at the speed you need to be. That's how physics works when you have zero gravity and no friction whatsoever, no wind resistance. Anyway, that's physics. That's physics in a space game. I'm trying to think. I know I had one other thing I wanted to touch on that I wish that they had brought into the game that they never did. I know I keyed on
the ability to play without leaving your house.
No, because you have Vassal. I recognize that FFG kind of closes their eyes, and for the folks that do it on Vassal, you do have opportunities to play the game at home if you want through that. I don't feel that it's. I think that Vassal is a good tool, and I shout out to
just don't leave your house.
Well, I actually got the opportunity to play X-Wing in Canada while I was in Quebec, and Mick Muon, the guy who does the modules for that, I got the opportunity to play with him in his local game store, and I got a French starter set that I've never opened, and I've got a whole bunch of French cards. I've got Darth Vader's French version of it. It's really, really super fun.
It's first edition, so it's useless.
but it's a memory that I'm not going to forget for a really, really long time. But Shadow
you said first edition's useless.
Useless for play, not useless for nostalgia and memory. But Vassal was a fantastic.
Oh, now he's fixing it.
Yeah, Vassal is a fantastic tool for playing at home, but I don't feel that it gives you the real tabletop experience because it doesn't give you the eyes to be able to judge range. Things get fudged and bumped. They're not as perfect as that. I recognize that Vassal is fantastic for it. It makes everything perfect for bumps, or where things are going to land. There's no wiggle room whenever you're putting the ships onto the guides, but it's not a real tabletop experience. So it's a great place to practice and kind of get some ideas and work some lists out, but I still highly recommend the on-the-table experience versus that.
I was just making fun of you.
Oh, yeah. No. I know. I understand. Oh, God. I know I had one other thing. We're going to close this show out and be like, oh, I forgot to talk about this thing.
Talk about how, Empire needs droids.
That's what it was. You were talking about Empire's Range. Thank you. That's exactly what it was. So,
and they can still fix that, make it a large base only thing.
One of the large base ships always drove me nuts was any mechanic that they added to the game that was cool, the Empire never got. And if it was a cool mechanic that the Empire had, other factions would get it. So the clear-cut example on that one was TIE Fighters, and then all of a sudden Rebels got TIE Fighters, and Scum now have TIE Fighters. Everybody has TIE Fighters. Turrets were in the game from Wave 1. Empire didn't see a turret until the Death Star.
You just complained that Scum have got a TIE Fighter, which they don't have yet. But Empire have turrets.
Okay, so that's a good argument. So maybe using that for the first edition...
Confirmation bias,
Confirmation. You're right. So using
Wait. You're saying Scum doesn't have turrets?
Don't have TIE Fighters.
TIE Fighters.
Oh, wow.
They won't have TIE Fighters until second edition. So, okay.
And then they won't have TIE Fighters. They'll have Mining Guild TIE Fighters, which are different.
They are different. They have different... I got you. But it's still the frame.
They removed 2 panels.
What would you rather?
It's different.
It has different rules. Different points cost.
It does have different rules. But the fact that, so Rebels had turrets on a small base ship and had options to use turrets from Wave 1, and the Empire didn't get them until, Wave 12, whenever those came out?
The Aggressor, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that the the Rebels started off with a Rebel large base ship that had a turret, and the Empire didn't get it until Wave 5. And we never got droids. They could never have anything upgrades. It always
the
felt
Rebels
like
didn't get a rear-facing arc on a large base ship.
No, that's a good arc. That's true. That is true.
Rebels didn't get a Palpatine.
No, they did not. You're right.
Rebels didn't get PS9 aces up the yin yang that can arc dodge for days because they've got a good dial.
They fixed it with.
I'm not. Paul was still in an X-Wing chassis. Paul can't do Sootnia things.
But, he had the Talon roll.
I don't know. It just always felt like they were against the Empire.
So that's because it's a faction you play.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so some of those things you listed, the Empire does have those, but then they were also given the Scum. So if it's not Rebels getting Empire stuff or better stuff, it's Scum who is getting it.
And Scum would get
the Zero maneuver. Hey, here we go, guys.
Here we go.
Passing out the Zero maneuvers.
When we were looking at dials,
the ability to cloak was given the Scum.
So, do you feel like you could play Pulp Aces list, that style of play, in Scum?
I honestly don't know what most of the Scum cards do.
No, the only I think Fenrir.
The closest you could have got was Paratani, which still works in a slightly different way.
Yeah, because they're in second edition. They're now dotting and double dotting upgrade cards to tell you how many you can use for that. I don't know if anyone read that. I full credit, Harry Nick, the guy from Australia that does a lot of the YouTube videos. I'm a big fan and I watch a lot of his stuff. He was going over the rules. This is second edition talk. I apologize for a moment, but we're so used to having the unique dot on things, but they did clarify in the rules that we'll sell upgrades that have like 2 dots or even 3 dots. That kind of goes back to the old Star Wars card game that says this is the maximum number that you can have in a squad. So if you have 2 dots, you can only have 2 of those upgrades. I think that's how they're going to fix situations like that, by dotting and double dotting them. But anyway, that's second edition talk.
I don't think that Empire were hard done by in any way, shape, or form.
How many worlds did Empire win? Aside from the first, Doug Kennedy.
Okay, so that's fine. So shall we look at how many regionals Empire have won?
I'm not talking that.
No, but what's a better judge of statistics? Is it the casting your net wider or taking 5 tournaments?
I'm just saying.
Are you going to say that the result of taking a sample size of 5 is better than taking a larger sample size?
Depends on the quality. It's not necessarily quantity.
That's why you said regionals. I would say Empire have done fine.
See, you're making this argument to a couple of guys who live in the Pittsburgh area. And even though there have been championships going back past the origination of the Super Bowl, Pittsburgh area people will tell you the Steelers have won 6 Super Bowls and nobody else has won that many. Now, if you look at all the championships going back to when football started, no, the Steelers don't have the most championship wins. But we only count Super Bowls because that's
the big game.
Well, that's fine.
Big one.
You can.
So it's kind of a hard argument to throw in regionals for us.
That's like saying, okay, great, you made the playoffs. You still didn't make the big win.
No, but that's like saying if the only game a team wins is the final. One, how did they get there? Obviously, but that's irrelevant. You've got to look at the data. And if you're talking like actual data analysis now, a better use of the data would be casting the net wider, having a wider sample size, and Empire are fine, or were fine. I wouldn't have nerfed Palpatine at all. I thought it was fine.
Thank you.
But equally, I wouldn't have nerfed Whisper.
Thank you.
But
any advantage we ever had, they took it away. All right, you've sold me. I get it. You're right. I probably have quite a bit of confirmation bias because it was the faction that I played, and I always felt like we were always kind of behind the 8 ball, especially whenever Scum came out and Empire really took a dive. It took them a long, long time to come back to get back into the competitive circuits. And now,
well, the thing that Scum did, Empire did that Scum didn't, is they still had the better dials. But people generally are bad at X-Wing and can't actually fly the ships and just line up and fly straight forwards and die. So that advantage was pretty null and void.
Yes, I would agree. And I think that's going to change in 2nd edition as the upgrades and the combos of upgrades aren't going to define the game. At least at its onset, it's going to be about pilot skills. And if you are a good pilot, and you've got a better dial, and you've got better options. We'll see. I've got high hopes for our Imperial boys moving into 2nd edition. All right, so I think this wouldn't be a lack of focus if we haven't kind of gone off the rails, and we have. Any other final thoughts on 1st edition, our times and experience with that?
It's a wrap.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to go on to close out the show right after this.
I don't know. Fly casual.
All right, so I want to thank you again for joining us for episode 6. That's a wrap of X-Wing 1.0. We do have a few things we need to close out the show. We got some housekeeping to do. We're giving away stuff today. We have a card that Chris had promised in the last show. We have this is two shows before. This is going out to our Patreon community. So we have obviously removed ourselves from the running, unfortunately. So this leaves one of three potential lucky winners for this fantastic Lando card.
Is it me?
No. Are you a Patreon?
Is it one of my fake accounts?
So we have Gustavo, Jerry, and Ronnie.
Woo!
Okay, so let's line this up.
So out of the box thing, Chris has got a random name generator. He's got the names in. I opted to say it's a dice game. I should roll a die and he should come up with names. But this was the way he thought that this was more.
I have a D3.
You can see it. Can see it happen if you watch a YouTube video. So we will click and Ronnie Herget.
Woo-hoo!
There you go, Ronnie.
Yay!
So I owe you a Lando from the Comic-Con. The Comic-Con Lando. So if you...
Congratulations!
Yeah, woo!
Hey, sir.
If you could email us at lackoffocuspodcast@gmail.com with your address, I'll get that in the post. I will also shoot you a message on Patreon as well, thank you, just in case. But there we go. We have a winner.
And if you, too, would like to be eligible for these fabulous prizes that we give away on Lack of Focus. It only takes a little click on Patreon, a couple of dollars if you can spare it. If not, if you still enjoy the show, that'd be great just to kind of get the word out. But that does kind of help out the show. It kind of helps cover some of the costs of running this fantastic operation. But it does make you eligible for prizes like these. We have other things to talk about too. Do you want to touch on that now, or do you want to touch on that later?
Trying to remind me what they are.
Little round things. I think we may have talked about them last show.
So the Lack of Focus tokens to hand out. So those are going to be a Patreon reward. I'll send them out once you've given us $5. I'll throw them in the mail. I'm not going to set them at a given level. I'm not going to make you pay a $5 pledge. If you want to pay $1, once you've given us $5, I will chuck them in the mail for you. But we have
a big stack of them too.
But they're going down. I've given out, so I need to post some to you and Sean and Chad. So they are going down, but I can get them reprinted thanks to our sponsors who made them and haven't yet charged me. So that's why I threw them up on there. They haven't given us any money, but they haven't charged me any money for those tokens yet. That is Galaxy Gaming Gear. So they make some cool X-Wing templates and tokens, and are doing custom work for me. So that's good. I got the.
Thanks, guys. You guys rock.
That's awesome. Would have been nice to have those for this weekend, Chris. But hey, cool.
Man's busy.
It's not like you sent me your address 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, I know, right?
I did get the proofs for the Dice Hate maneuver templates as well. So that'll be pretty cool. I still think I need to hand paint them, but I'll sort that out as they come in. That'll be a more smaller quantities.
Are you getting those in the same color as the Lack of Focus tokens?
They're going to be white, solid white acrylic. The lines will be in blue, like the Dice Hate logo, and then the dots on the dice will be picked out in red. So it'll be a 3-color template. Me having to paint the blue and the red by hand.
So you get something hand painted by one Mr. Chris Sheriff. That's a limited edition thing right there.
Yeah, no, that's it for me. I don't really have any other pimping to do. I'm really happy everyone seems to be enjoying it. Make sure you check out the Patreon, even if you don't plan on paying any money towards it ever. It's still a good resource because we have more content on there. So
also, if you happen to enjoy the show and you're only listening to this in audio format, check out the Dice Hate YouTube channel. Give the video a like and drop a comment in there. That kind of helps the analytics for Google to kind of drop out our names and get the name of the show out there. It's a huge help to the show, and it doesn't cost you a thing to help us out to do that.
Stealing Chad's bits. Oh no.
Oh,
yeah,
you're right.
He is.
I apologize, Chad. By all means, I'll let you talk before I ruin the whole thing.
Well, I've got a question to talk about.
Yeah.
That's right.
Before we even get to that, I have a question. Yeah, we got the word out a little bit late. It says it only reached 148 people, but we only got one question. What's up with that?
Oh.
What's up with?
But it is Scott though. So.
It's Scott, and Scott wants to know, Qui-Gon Jinn, good teacher or bad teacher?
I have mixed feelings on this. So I think Obi-Wan's awesome, and he taught Obi-Wan. So, good teacher, but then he doesn't know that the Force binds us and surrounds us and joins us. He thinks it's some form of midichlorian thing, so that's just teaching people wrong.
Okay, so not that I am ever going to defend the prequels in any way, shape, or form.
Uh-oh.
But
I challenge that statement. I'm sorry, Scott, I need to interrupt. What would you rather watch, Revenge of the Sith or Last Jedi?
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. Prequels are better. Woo!
Oh, better than the current?
So
I'd still say Force Awakens.
you just defended the prequels.
I did.
I would again.
In comparison to this new era of Star Wars, I'd still say that Force Awakens is an okay Star Wars movie. I still gave it a pretty good rating. I'm still confident that I'm still standing behind that. Last Jedi sucked ass, and I could go on for 2 hours on that, and I'm not going to do that. What I would say though,
in focus special.
it has been recently released, the idea that where Lucas was going with the midichlorian thing and the wills, and how the midichlorians were a conduit to talk to the wills, and the wills are the source of the Force. So, like, whenever you kind of put all of those pieces together, I think it's a bad storytelling, flat out. And I think that it was presented incorrectly in Phantom Menace. It was correctly just blown by, and nobody ever talked about it again after that. I think it could have been a cool, but you needed the rest of the story to get it, and we never got it. I think Phantom Menace was just overall bad to begin with, and minus 4 cool minutes with Darth Maul, it's a completely, utterly useless movie. Anyway, to address the question at hand, though, was Qui-Gon a good teacher or not? So Chris makes a very good point in the fact that he trained Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan, while passing the Jedi trials and becoming a Jedi Knight under Qui-Gon's tutelage, he really became the Jedi Master Obi-Wan that we know through the teachings of Yoda and not necessarily Qui-Gon. So whenever you hear that conversation where Obi-Wan's ghost is sending Luke to Dagobah, the Jedi Master that instructed me, he's talking about Yoda. He's not talking about Qui-Gon. I think Qui-Gon made many mistakes. I think there's a reason why, and it's even said in the prequels, why he was not on the Jedi Council. He didn't follow the rules, and he was kind of loosey-goosey. And if you really want to place blame where blame belongs, if Qui-Gon doesn't take Anakin off of Tatooine, Darth Vader doesn't exist. The Jedi are still in power.
That's not about his teaching.
How do you know?
It's all his fault.
I've got new canon for you. I think that Qui-Gon is actually Darth Plagueis the Wise. Because he actually found a way to save himself, because Yoda says to Obi-Wan, your old master,
that's so good.
He's found a way to return from the dead, you know?
Oh, that's so good.
And if you watch episode 1, it doesn't really look like he's burning.
That's so good. Well, neither did Vader, too. And you see the melted helmet in Force Awakens. But that is such a good theory. Unfortunately, and I'm trying to do my best, because I know there are people that say that like the whole entire plot for Episode 9 has been leaked, and then I hear that they're doing a rewrite. But one of the things that and not because I looked, but because I'm trying to avoid it. I'm still going to go see it. I'm not going to lie. I'm a Star Wars nerd, and I'm still going to go see it. I'm going to hate every minute of it. But one of the things I heard is that for fan service, they were going to make Snoke Darth Plagueis just to kind of satiate all of us Star Wars nerds and try to tie everything together. I don't know if that is true, how much fact that is. It's just rumor, and I'm not putting a lot into rumor. I think at this point...
But you're already deciding you're going to hate it.
I still think that there is... If you judge it as a trilogy of trilogies, I think the overall experience will be enjoyable once 9 is out.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm kind of reserved to that factor. I definitely feel as a middle movie, Empire Strikes Back by far the best of all of them.
Yeah, we're going to cut you off, and I actually have some good points that I think we could do an in-focus thing on. So I think we can do an in-focus show on Star Wars movies and rant for hours.
Yeah, okay. You're getting way off the question. So
you're right. So my short answer: Qui-Gon was a bad teacher. Obi-Wan recognized
it. Good teacher, good Sith mentor.
Good Sith mentor, because he basically, if you really want to blame it, I know everyone tried to blame Jar Jar for the Emperor coming to power, but the Emperor wouldn't have come to power if he hadn't found Anakin and had Anakin there to help him during the process. If you want to lay blame at anyone's feet, it's on Qui-Gon.
Chad.
Wow.
Actually,
before Jar Jar screwed up, Padme screwed up. So let's even just go back that far. It's Padme's fault that the Empire exists.
Should have just kept a punt.
Because she fell for the Emperor's plea for calling for the vote of no confidence, which removed the previous Chancellor and then put him into power.
General Zod. You got General Zod out of thing. What the heck, man?
Padme is the one who screwed up Star Wars.
Terrence Stamp, such a great actor.
So basically, I say bad teacher because, like you had said, with Yoda, Ghost Obi-Wan is talking to Yoda, and Yoda's like, Luke is too old to begin training. And he's like, oh, well, wasn't I, when I came to you? It's like, well, how much training did Qui-Gon do if Yoda pretty much was considered his, his Jedi,
So let's just say that Qui-Gon gave him his associate's degree in Jedi training. Yoda completed his master's degree.
In Phantom Menace, Obi-Wan is Qui-Gon's Padawan.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not disagreeing.
He's really old for a Padawan.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not
what he's saying.
disagreeing with
Wasn't he too old when he came to a Jedi way?
I think Qui-Gon didn't do a good job with Obi-Wan, and is
Or was Obi-Wan just so good that he exceeded his teachings? Because you got to figure, Obi-Wan didn't die at the hands of Darth Maul. Qui-Gon did. Who learned better?
And he didn't even have the high ground. That's what he learned about the
He
high
didn't even have
ground.
the high ground.
He learned about the high ground fighting Darth Maul.
You don't see what training Yoda gives him between 1 and 2.
All I
It
know
teaches
is
him
he was
all
a
about the
Jedi
high
Knight at
ground.
the end of 1. He's a Jedi Master by 3. And there was training that happened in between there. And you know, when he refers to his teacher, he's referring to Yoda. He is not referring to Qui-Gon.
That's
Let's
because he's
put it
not
this
sending
way.
him to Qui-Gon.
Well, it also has a lot to do with the fact that the prequels weren't fleshed out, and he didn't know who Qui-Gon was when he wrote that line for the movie. Let's be honest. I know that Lucas had this grand scheme for these 9 episodes, but I think there's been some edits and changes to that idea as the movies flew on. Like, there should have been Wookiees in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be on Kashyyyk, and it was supposed to be Wookiees. Stupid bears.
But let's put it this
No
way.
Yub-Nub. No Yub-Nub. I'm not down with the Yub-Nub.
Okay, come on.
All right. Anyhow,
One question. Let's wrap it up.
Liam Neeson died in that role. It's not a good character if Liam Neeson dies. I mean, how bad of a character do you have to be where Liam Neeson dies?
Kill me.
It's
I will
Henry
find
Sean
you,
Bean.
and I will kill you. Yeah, Liam Neeson did a great job acting the role, but that's completely aside. Anyway, so let's move on. We've got some plugs we have to put in before we go to the end of the show.
Right.
And that's on your roll, Chad.
I usually do that when you're saying bye.
Oh,
We've
that's
been
true.
doing this for how long?
How long?
How do you not know this?
Only 6
All right,
episodes.
all right.
New
So
format.
I am going to say goodbye to everyone. Chris, thank you so much for joining the show tonight.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me.
Chad, always good talking to you, my friend.
Always a pleasure to be here. Want to say thanks to all the fans. If you want Lack of Focus podcast on Facebook, go ahead and hit us up with your messages and give us some questions for future episodes that we can answer for you. Harass Ed to go to tournaments, that kind of stuff. We do have the Lack of Focus podcast at gmail.com if you want to email us. If you want to hit us up for Patreon and help support us, that would be really, really awesome. I know Chris would appreciate it. That's patreon.com/lack of focus. There's always the YouTube Dice Hate channel. Like, share, subscribe, all those fun videos. You get
comment. Don't forget to comment.
Comment on them. I mean, you get to see the little things I'm doing in the background that's making Ed laugh and all that kind of fun stuff. We have some audio formats we've been approved for. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah, we are now available on Spotify. We are on Google Play. We are on the iTunes, the Apple podcast app that comes on your phone and iPad. We have the Lack of Focus on Podbean as well. And then you can still subscribe to the Dice Hate on SoundCloud if you like that.
So there's no excuse for not being able to find us. We are everywhere.
Look at
and there's
that.
Ed holding us there, and now it's focused.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's Ed holding a blurry phone up to the screen, but then it's eventually focused.
Yeah.
This is why we don't let him run technical stuff.
I'm just a mouthpiece. That's all I am. That's all I do.
And I'm not going to comment.
I was quite happy we're on Spotify, if I'm honest. I felt like that was an achievement. Ticking the box. We must be a real podcast.
Must be. 6 episodes.
So,
we're definitely going.
There's plenty of ways to get a hold of us. Like I said, any of those are great. You want to give us list ideas, you want to give us comments, you want to harass Ed, you want to do any of that stuff, hit us up, guys. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. Also, let us know if there is a place where you want to listen where you currently can't.
That'd be a good helpful. Yes.
I don't know how you would, because you wouldn't have heard us say it, but, figure it out. Let us know.
In the future, go back in time and send us a link. Say, hey, you need an RSS feed here.
If you're reading the official transcript.
All right, so that is going to do it for episode 6. I want to thank everyone for joining us. And as always, guys, wait, what are we covering next week? Next week is going to be release week.
Yeah. It's big show next one. I think I might try and line up a couple of guests. I don't know. It'll probably be like small community guests and people. But we'll try and do a bumper show next week. Maybe split it into 2.
We'll have Nova Open interviews.
We'll have Nova Open interviews. We'll have reviews from the finals in there with the list with the last list to win the tournaments kind of thing. But hopefully in our formerly Nicotine Stained Fingers, we will have 2nd edition box sets and cards and dials to put together. Oh, I'm so excited. Can't wait. So that will be coming out in the next episode. So looking forward to that one. So until then, guys, we will catch you on the next episode. And as always, fly casual. Thank you once again for joining the Lack of Focus X-Wing podcast. Check out Dice Hate Productions for all the latest episodes, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next episode.